James Richter, how you doing? Joel Bradford, how you doing? XMB, how you doing? Bobby Jones, what's up, guys? Glad you could make it this evening. I hope everyone had a good weekend, or at least starting off Monday morning pretty well, wherever you guys are. Sound check, sound okay, or needs to be adjusted? Is it okay for you guys right now? Rob P, how you doing? Luke Jones, how's it going? Kawi Kanyakoa, how you doing? Aloha. Good audio. Okay, good. Okay, great. Appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Yeah, let's go silver. Okay, so we'll be starting up in just a bit again. Thank you all for being here. Hello again, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Silver Bullion Television, SBTV. I'm your host, Patrick Vieira, and this is the live stream. Glad you could be here wherever you are. See quite a number of guys, regulars. Bobby Jones, Kawi Kaniokoa, RR. Sounds good. Thank you. Yeah, every now and then, just if you don't mind, go ahead and give me feedback on the sound check. Lately, there's been some issues with it, but hopefully, I got that resolved. James Richter. So China seized some cash. It looks like they're going to. I don't know if they've actually done it already, but it looks like they're going to. That seems to be part of the plan. We'll touch on that. Pudenda Johnson, how you doing? So again, glad all of you could be here. If it is your first time here, or if you are new to the channel, please don't forget to subscribe or click on the bell to be notified on updates, and give us the thumbs up. If you like what we do, we really do appreciate your support. And again, you folks can always find us on social media, whether it's our website, silverbullion.com.sg, whether it's our Facebook site, excuse me, Silver Bullion SG, Twitter at Silver Bullion PL for private limited. Audio versions on Bitly, you can find them at SBTV iTunes, SBTV Spotify, and of course, please do join our crisis tracker group if you have that Telegram app on your mobile phone or on your desktop. Go ahead and join that group, as we often do put bits of news and information that we find. We go ahead and send it out and keep everyone informed as to what's going on. So let's see. Jim, New Zealand, whoop whoop, how you doing? Lesso Bash, hello from Montana. Sound is good. Thank you. Appreciate it. Diana Y, thanks. Appreciate it. Shane Clements, how you doing? Mask and goggles, they're right by the door. Don't leave home without it. Right? So that comes with me wherever I go. You just don't know. I mean, some people they're saying don't use masks unless you're sick. Well, the thing is, even when people talk, there are droplets that come out in everyday conversations, and that's more than enough probably to get things started, or to pass things around. So I'm a bit I'm in disagreement with that theory where don't wear a mask unless you're sick, because the thing is, just through everyday talking, you can go ahead and pass a few droplets here and there. So protect yourself. You got masks around the area, go ahead and get them, but don't hoard. We hear stories, and we see how hoarding can really worsen things. So get what you need. Taking care of yourself is taking care of others. Let's see what's out there. RC Rob P, how you doing? Annette Walls, Middle Tennessee here, always listening. Thank you, appreciate that. Paul Eden, where's Silver headed? I'm, I'm gonna cautiously say up, only because it gets it gets to that 18 range, above 18 range, and then it gets smacked down a bit, goes back into 17s, and then it doesn't take too long to get back into the 18s, and then it gets pushed down, and then it doesn't take too long again to get back into the 18 range. So I think silver is trying to get there. It's really, really trying to get there, but unfortunately, it's still a tool that is being used for certain people or certain entities to go ahead and make some money off of. Talking about the paper silver, but just hang in there with the silver. The physical is where you should be at right now. Okay, so let's see. Pudenda Johnson, how bad is the situation in Singapore? Um, I think anyone can go online and see what it is. It I think we're up to mid 70s now as far as confirmed cases, but I think there's also we're at about maybe close to 20 or so as far as people who have recovered. Um, but it is there's no denying that confirmed cases it is moving up a bit. So that's why as much as possible take care of yourselves. But it's not in panic mode or anything like that. It's just people are becoming more aware that they need to take care of themselves, because again, taking care of you is taking care of everyone else. So you got to make sure that you're taking care of yourself, and at the same time balance that out with taking care of your neighbors. I mean, what I mean by that is don't hoard the masks. Don't go and hoard the dried noodles and things like that. There's enough to go around. We're nowhere near that point or anything. So just take care of yourself, and that in turn will help other people to take care of themselves. Again, taking care of you is taking care of me is taking care of you. So just go about it in a calm way, and we'll all be okay. uh Diana, why good old chicken soup? Yeah, yep, that's true. Chicken soup, plant-based. Rob P, well, maybe. maybe maybe let's see. Yeah, there you go. 75 confirmed cases, 19 discharged. So it, I don't want to say it is what it is, but it is something that um it it's gonna do its thing. It's gonna work through people, population, places, whatever it is, and the way we can really get a hold of it is to again take care of yourself. Yeah, Pudenda Johnson, no deaths. See, that's the thing. I mean, there have been for sure in China and I think a few other places, but Singapore, no, no deaths. Um, okay, so N95 masks are sold out everywhere in the states. Lone traveler, yeah, I'm pretty disappointed with that. I was looking on, I think I told you guys this last week, where I was looking on Amazon, and the prices of N95 masks are pretty high. Pretty high. Pretty. They're inflated. So if Jerome Powell is looking for inflation, just tell him go ahead and search N95 mask on Amazon. He'll find inflation. Well, actually, it might be more price gouging. But the thing with Amazon, you look at it, the prices there, they're pretty high. And what I noticed was a lot of the guys selling masks are new sellers. So that kind of tells me, or the way I reason that out is, a lot of these guys hoarded masks and then they come on and now they're trying to sell it at places like Amazon, where you see them listed as new sellers. So if you can wait it out, wait it out. Get them from your local places, your local pharmacies, drugstores, even hardware stores. I think N95 mask. I think the drywall guys, the chipboard guys, they often use that. So even go to your hardware stores, support those guys. The ones who you see price gouging, don't don't support those guys. If at all possible, try not to. And if you can wait it out, wait for your pharmacy to be restocked, your drugstore to be restocked, and wait for those guys. Give them the business as much as possible. It's just my opinion, but that's what I would do. I would wait it out if I could, and then go and support the guys who are doing it right. um, okay, that's my opinion there. um let's see. Diana, why respect? Yeah, it does. It does. Fritz Bender. Do you see it getting to the point where governments give up and let it run its course because of expenditures. Um, I that one's tough because government is politics. Politics, are politicians. Politicians are people. They're people who need your vote. And I think if any politician came out and said, government is just gonna let it do its thing, that politician's out. So I don't think there'll be any politician to kind of actually go out and say that. Um, hey man, LTC gets some of that. I'm because of a lot of the news that's coming out lately, which we'll go over a bit. Very much so, considering some of the cryptos again more seriously now. Um, okay, so geez, you guys definitely have a lot of comments here. LC, interestingly, in biblical times, they made silver utensils and drinking cups from silver. Yes, they did. Silver, no natural antibacterial properties. Colloidal silver is a good home item to have on hand. That is true. You're seeing this pop up more and more and more. And then the thing with that colloidal silver, there are different types: colloidal silver, ionic silver. You got to be able to know the difference between the two. And from what I'm reading, you folks can do your own research on this. Uh, a lot of guys are saying, things like nebulizers are good to have because it gets things like the medicine or that colloidal silver down into the lungs where it needs to be. But I'm not a doctor, okay? Don't take that as any type of professional medical advice. But I'm only saying it because as you go online, you're going to see more and more of these things popping up all over the place. So just try and be aware of a lot of these things. So anyway, speaking of silver, let's go ahead and take a look at silver and gold, of course. So we'll head on over to our website. Um, storage promotion program again, 75% off transfer in charges. That's a good thing. That helps out a lot with guys who want to transfer over their silver and gold. Silver 17.88 an ounce, up a little. Gold 15.83. Nice to see it start off in that 1580 range and hold. We'll see where it ends up as the day goes on. Nickel, slight bump, and cobalt. Still I need to check the numbers on cobalt to make sure the number is true on that. But that's where we stand right now. Silver 17.88 an ounce, gold 15.83 per ounce in USD. And taking a look at the ratio, we're at 88.6. So 88.6 ounces of silver will equal 1 ounce of gold. And I think most of us here already know that that ratio is way off, which is making silver a lot better bargain to buy than gold right now. So do consider things like the ratio when you go ahead and look at buying silver and gold. Uh, Kevin Smith, power period silver Litecoin. Okay, power period silver Litecoin. Um, Gotta explain a bit on that one. You kind of got me. Power period silver Litecoin. Okay, yeah, you got to explain a bit on that one, Kevin. Maybe some of you guys out there know what it is, but I'm fishing through my mind right now trying to figure out what that is. Um, our silver was made to be currency, unlike dirty cloth bills. It's not a germ carrier, and we're gonna get into those dirty cloth bills also. Last week was pretty interesting as far as the repo market. I just wanted to point out a couple things. I won't get too deep into it. So last week, what we saw was the um the MBS, the mortgage-backed securities. They're pretty high right now. You can see where they're just as high as treasuries. Mortgage-backed securities being used as collaterals. They are being used as collateral right now. Um, you look here back on Friday, there were more mortgage-backed securities used as collateral, more so than treasuries. And then you move over, still on Thursday, you're going to see that what was submitted was far more than what was accepted. So they're asking for more, but they're not getting it. So that was pretty interesting also. And we move over into Wednesday. Again, it's more mortgage-backed securities being used than treasuries. So again, pretty interesting. And we go down. Sorry, still in Wednesday. Again, mortgage-backed is being used more for collateral than treasuries. What I'm looking at is this number here. Sorry about that. Mortgage-backed. Oop, mortgage-backed. Okay, this is the collateral type mortgage-backed. And we look at Tuesday. And Tuesday we see the same thing where they were asking for 53 billion, they got 30 billion. So again, they didn't get what they wanted. And then on Monday, we'll go down to Monday, we see again mortgage backed was more than treasury. So mortgage backed is being used more and more as a collateral type more than treasuries are. And I did find that to be pretty interesting. And what was also interesting was the Swiss who are busted. Swiss busted. Uh, the machines, Swiss machines used to spy on governments for decades. For decades, for decades. Okay, so US and German intelligence services secretly gathered the classified communications of governments for decades through secret control of an encryption company. Swiss firm Crypto AG supplied encoding devices to more than 120 governments from the Cold War era up to the year 2000. But the spies reportedly rigged the devices so they could crack the codes and read the messages. They harvested secrets from countries like Iran, India, Pakistan. The highly classified program between the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency and Germany's BND, Federal Intelligence Service, has been detailed in reports by U.S. newspaper The Washington Post. Let me scroll down a bit. The company made millions of dollars in profits that went to the CIA and the BND. Foreign governments were paying good money to the US and West Germany for the privilege of having their most secret communications read by at least two and possibly as many as five or six foreign countries. This is in a report by the CIA operation. It enabled the U.S. to monitor Iranian officials during 1979 hostage crisis, as well as Britain and the Falklands War with Argentina. Interesting, Russia and China never trusted the machines and did not use them. The firm, formed after part of the original company was acquired by an investor in 2018, said it had no connections to the CIA or BND and was very distressed by the reports. So yeah, Swiss kind of getting into a little bit of hot water there. A lot of spying always going on, right? So let me get back to some of these comments here. Let's see. Excuse me. Kevin Smith. Power if if silver compared to gold. LTC is same powerful in context of BYC. Um, I'm gonna need one of those Swiss encoding devices, my friend. I'm not sure what this means here. Power if is silver compared to gold. LTC is same powerful in context of BYC. Mm, okay, not sorry, not sure what that means yet. Um, sorry, apologies for this. Uh, let's see. RR. I just refinanced my home loan. I feel like a seal every time I say your name. The lender sold the loan to Fannie Mae, but the lender is still controlling the payments and transactions. Yeah. Okay. Let's see what else is here. So much for Swiss neutrality. Yeah, PM Ruckus, you hit it on the head. Swiss is trusted. It's been trusted for decades, and for news like this to come out, it's pretty damning. What else is going on there? Usually things like this, they're just the tip of the iceberg, and there's a lot more that runs deep. He means BTC. Yeah, I kind of I was guessing that that's what he meant there, but I didn't want to assume. But I can go with that. BTC, not BYC. So if we read it again, Kevin Smith, power is if silver compared to gold, LTC is the same power in context of Bitcoin, BTC. Okay, it makes a little bit more sense now. Thank you. Appreciate it, Kevin. Let's see. Diana, why? It'll be really funny if Swiss decide to confiscate gold holdings in Switzerland. Um, I think I think right now what you have a lot of people concerned with is their privacy for sure. Um, for sure, privacy nowadays, it's a commodity. It's traded back and forth. It seems through companies and it. I'm sure a lot of guys are concerned with their privacy. Um, yeah, it's a good point. It's a very good point. Switzerland, you have to pay for a painless, okay, whatever that is. James Mayo, that's where the Rothschilds and Warburgs hang out. If you do your history, uh, they've been in those areas a few times. So that's another good point. Fritz Bender, honestly, gold is where to be because of China's slowdown hurting silver, in my opinion. It's hard to say. I think industrially, I think you're going to see silver making a bit of a bigger move because I think most of us know the qualities or antibacterial qualities of silver, and it's historically it's always been used for medical purposes. So I think maybe big pharma or whatever it is has a medical compass pointed in a different direction, but I do think you are going to get some of these doctors and physicians there. They're going to look backward and see what worked. And silver does have a history of working. Whether it works or not on this, don't know. I'm not in a position to know or test it or anything like that. But I think uh, it's not out of the realm of possibilities where these physicians are going to turn that compass and point it maybe away from big pharma and back to historical remedies. Could be. Uh, is Niles, can you comment on palladium's volatility? You know what, my friend, I have not been watching Palladium all that much. With all the news of everything else coming out, I I apologize for that. I have not had a chance to watch Palladium and give a good comment on it. Sorry about that. Really, really apologize for that. Um, let's see. Yeah, okay, so some of you guys talked about cash and the cash being able to basically get dirty from this virus and whatnot, and something that recently came out was where China is literally cleaning its money to stop the spread of the coronavirus. Okay, so as the Chinese government continues its effort to slow the spread of the deadly coronavirus, the country's central bank, at a press conference on the 15th, told media it was going to begin literally cleaning, literally cleaning its currency. It's an extreme move that makes sense. Actually, for me, it doesn't, but I'll read it anyway. It makes sense whether it's dollars, pounds, euro, shekels, or in this case, won. Currently is notoriously dirty. A 2017 study of $1 bills in New York found some 397 bacterial species living on the surface, and when someone with the flu handles it, the virus has been shown to survive up to 12 days. WHO has said that it's still not known how long the coronavirus can survive on surfaces and objects, including money. We're talking physical cash notes here. Preliminary information has shown it can survive a few hours or more, but it can be killed with basic disinfectants. Okay, I'll stop there. Um, why I say it won't really work is because you're going to put that money back in circulation, right? Unless what are you going to do? Destroy the bills and make new bills, new clean bills, and then what happens? People use it again. Starts to move, starts to circulate. So I don't see how they are going to alleviate that problem. To me, it seems more like some type of a publicity deal where they're trying to prep you that they're going to have to go digital. And if any of you guys been following this live stream, you guys know we've been talking about central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. This does seem like a good I hate to say it, but opportunity. Never let a good opportunity go to waste, right? Um, it does seem like this is where eventually later on you might hear, well, it's we tried washing the bills, it's still dirty. We're going to have to move away from cash and go into a digital currency, and China has been feeling this way for a while right now. They're on a mission to create an all powerful cryptocurrency. And we hear this from time to time where the Bitcoin miners they face severe regulation in China, and instead the country is creating its own digital currency, and it could be adopted at a very fast rate. So this may be the year. Let me make this bigger, so most of us can see it. This may be the year we see the world's first sovereign digital currency, first discussed more than 5 years ago. China's DCEP, or Digital Currency Electronic Payments, looks to be nearing completion. There have been some false starts. That is true. We've been hearing this for since last year. This article is dated Feb 2020, so it's fairly recent. Just want to get up to speed with that. Um, while neither of these deadlines have come to pass, meaning when they thought this thing was going to be implemented, it's clear that China is gearing up to release DCEP as soon as possible, according to presentations by Mu Changchun, the head of the Chinese Central Bank's Digital Currency Institute. Um, okay, so basically, I think we all know this already. They are going to move to a digital currency. In fact, most people there already use digital through a phone app, whether it's WeChat or Alipay, things like that. They're already using it, and it's starting to be uncommon, in fact, to use cash. And usually, it's the older generations that still use the cash. And so, with this move where China is talking about cleaning the cash, I think it's just a precedent where they're going to say, you know what, we're going to have to get away with cash altogether. So that's enough of me. I want to see what you guys are saying about it. Um, okay. Jimmy Davidson, oh snap, digital currency backed by gold. I would hope so. I would really hope if they do go that way that it is backed by gold. Bobby Jones, it's a way for them to move China to cryptos. I'm in that boat. I'm in that camp. Um, let's see, ride the curve. If China and all countries for that matter used silver coin for their money, this problem would be solved. Well, that's a good point because of that antibacterial quality of silver. Would it work? Um, I'm not a doctor. I wouldn't know, but why not? I mean, test it. See if it would have been able to do something or if it could do something. But I just don't think we're ever going to go back to physical cash. I mean, it's a move to go forward with digital. That's what it looks like. That's what it looks like to me. LC in the U.S. There are no pharma companies that make antibiotics. We are almost completely reliant on China. I've heard stories about that. I've even heard stories about even that little plastic capsule that not the gel, that little capsule that the powder form of meds go into. Almost all of it, from what I understand, is made in China. So the world basically is basically dependent on China for all these things, and I think we all agree that it's a bad thing. You never put all your apples in one basket, and if that's the biggest manufacturing um, country in the world, you got to expect manufacturing to go down. And if you're depending on your items to be made there, you got to expect delays. And we're also hearing or seeing more articles coming out about supply chain delays. So we're seeing all these types of things coming on, and I see you guys are on it. A lot of you guys are on it. RR, cash is dirty, always has been. Yeah, I think you all remember your parents telling you don't put that money in your mouth, right? Don't put the coin in your mouth, things like that. It's cloth and everyone touches it. It's a dirty, cheap, debased replacement for God's money, gold and silver. Strong point. Strong point. Jimmy Davidson, I heard China's moving to gold-based crypto. True or rumors? Um, Everything's a rumor. You rarely find truth in anything nowadays. So I would just take it as a rumor. But you know, if it does go that way, I'm hopeful that it will be gold backed. Um, go down a bit. Few more of the comments. Um, Shane Clements, and yet if the system crashes, we will absolutely need cash for a while. You know, in the U.S., definitely, you surely will. In China, it's a little bit of a different story. I think they have more of a chance to operate without so much cash, and mainly because they already have the systems set in place. Whereas I know countries like the U.S., I don't think as strong systems are set in place as what they have in China as far as electronic digital payments. So, there's I think there's a huge gap there. Another interesting thing that came out in the news is tax incentive to buy stocks. So the White House is considering a tax incentive for Americans to buy stocks. Okay, so White House is considering ways to incentivize U.S. households to invest in the stock market. Um, as if uh, as if the Fed isn't enough. So I guess when Jerome Powell says they want to start uh, pulling back, tapering in some ways, what's going to make that gap up is, I guess, we the people. They're going to give us incentives to buy stocks now. So under the proposal, a portion of income would become tax free for investment purposes. Trump administration is considering several proposals as part of a forthcoming economic stimulus package. In other words, it's election time, right? We got to start giving all these solutions for people to make money and keep the economy looking good. So, as part of a forthcoming package of proposed tax cuts, the White House is considering ways to incentivize U.S. households to invest in the stock market, according to four senior administration officials familiar with the discussion. Whenever I see this word incentivize, um, I kind of just equate it with manipulate. They're gonna manipulate the households to do this, to do that, to get it to do something. Incentivize, whenever you see that, just scratch it out and put in manipulate, because these words are basically interchangeable. The proposal of one of many new tax cuts under construction would see a portion of household income treated as tax free for the purpose of investing outside a traditional 401k. Under one hypothetical scenario described by multiple officials, a household earning up to 200,000 could invest 10,000 of that income on a tax-free basis, although officials noted these numbers are fluid. Okay. Um a lot of you already know how I feel about 401ks. If you can use some of it or roll some of it over into a precious metals IRA, that's what I would do. It's not professional, financial advice. It's just my opinion. It's just my opinion. I would roll that 401k over into a precious metals IRA. Why? 401k is dependent on the stock market. Okay, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, things like that. When that stock market goes up, as it has been, you folks out there with 401ks, you've been seeing your 401k do very, very well. Thing is, when that stock market goes down, your 401k is going to take a hit, which is why it's not a bad idea to go ahead and check with a company that knows about self-directed IRAs, SD IRAs, and just ask them, hey, I have a 401k. I've been hearing, talk about precious metals IRA. Can you let me know how I can learn more about it or how I can even get started in it? So what that does is when that stock market should tank, and a lot of us feel it will, your retirement is now in precious metals. So it'll help your retirement or help give your retirement a bit more of a shelter, and because now it's in gold and silver and not in the physical cash or in that stock market, I should say. So try and check into it if you can. But that's what looks like coming down the road, where they're going to incentivize people to try and go ahead and buy stocks. I'm not on board with that one. Definitely not on board. And then we saw Jerome Powell. He took a bit of a grilling on Capitol Hill last week, and he says the Fed will aggressively use QE to fight next recession. Well, a lot of us feel they've been doing it already. Fed chairman says central bank will use forward guidance communication with markets about interest rate plans. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell said last week the central bank would fight the next economic downturn by buying large amounts of government debt to drive down long term interest rates. Kind of sounds a bit like the repo market, a strategy that has been dubbed quantitative easing. Um, Kind of sounds like the repo market there. But anyway, in testimony before the Senate Banking Committee, Powell said the Fed had two recession fighting tools: buying government bonds, known as QE, which is what they're doing, and communicating clearly with markets about interest rate policy, routinely considered as forward guidance, which also is kind of what they're doing. We will use these tools. I believe we will use them aggressively should the need arise to do so. The Fed has traditionally been able to slash their interest rates to fight a recession, often by as much as 5 percentage points, but that's impossible now because the Fed's benchmark rate is currently at 1.7 or 1.5% to 1.75%, 1.5% to 1.75%. So let me see if I can pull this chart up real quick for you. The Fed funds rate. And what they're talking about is typically whenever there's a recession, which a recession is symbolized with these gray bars here. Gray bar, gray bar, gray bar. These gray vertical bars, that's the time of a recession. So what he's saying is right now we're at 1.5 to 1.75, which is here. Okay, so what he's saying is typically whenever there's a recession, these gray bars, you go down about 4 to 5%. So we can see here they were at, let me get it here, about 5.2% at the start of the recession. When the recession's over, they're at 0.18. And this is what they mean. This recession here, we started out, let me see, 6.51. The end of the recession, 1.82. So typically, we need about 4 or 5 percentage points or so to get that recession under control. But we don't have that runway right now. So I'm I tell you what, it's interesting times. Okay, take a look at some of the comments again. Let's see. Rolf Steiner, more and more and more money printing. Uh, yeah, can't get away from that. Just cannot get away from that. Let's see what else is out there. RR. Thank you, RR. Notice the incentive is for paper assets that the exactly you hit it on the head. Notice the incentive is for paper assets that the banks control. Keep everyone in paper. I'll just say it. That's the goal. Keep everyone in paper. No incentives for other assets, maybe like gold and silver, wealth transfer trap. Again, yeah, again, RR, good comment, great comment. You nailed it. You definitely nailed it. It's like excuse me. You think of cattle. Everyone's all the cattle's trying to be herded up right now, and moving towards equities, the paper markets. All moving towards there, and we're those guys that are kind of running around on the range still, running away, not trying to be caught up with the rest of the herd. um Frankly speaking, that herd is out to slaughter. That herd is going to get slaughtered, and none of us want to be none of us want to go in that direction, for sure. Kevin Smith, I'm very power in context. Where is my silver mining? My man, guys, if anyone can help me out with Kevin Smith's comment, I'd appreciate it. Kevin, yeah, you know what? You can just comment like everyone else because it's for me anyway, and I apologize. It's a bit difficult to put it in context with what you're saying, and you could. I mean, I appreciate the money, but you could buy some silver with that also. So maybe get some silver with that. I'll read your comments if I come across them. Okay, so I don't want to be fair to you. Okay, appreciate it though. Thanks, Kevin. So again, Kevin's comment, if anyone can help get through this. Um, I'm I'm okay in context. Where's my silver money? I guess I'm not sure. Sorry, Kevin. So again, let's all work on that one, and let's get Kevin in part of this conversation. He likes to participate. Thanks, Kevin. Do appreciate it. Let's see. Polynesian Pip. Oh, where'd you go? Oh, sorry about that. I Okay. Self-directed IRA. You can hold your metals. Check with perpetual assets. Okay. Thank you for that, Polynesian Pip. So again, check with perpetual assets. So again, it's not about us. It's about all of you out there, right? I mean, we're all in the same boat. We got to make it across to the other side. We got to get there, guys. All of us. Uh, let's see what else is out there. Um, Hostura of Carcosa. Well, there's IRA and then there's Roth IRA. The two aren't identical in contribution limits. Yeah, I think there is a difference between the two. I know there's a difference. I'm not able to pull it out of my head right now, but I do know there is a pretty significant difference between the two. So, but again, go ahead and Google up precious metals IRA. You should start to be seeing a list of companies. Go ahead and contact them. Initiate the contact. Tell them you have a 401k. You've been hearing about a precious metals 401k, and you'd like to get more information on it. And just get started. Just go ahead and get started. Uh, Sheeple that ride the curve. Good call. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Let me go down a bit. Okay. Sorry about it. I'm just trying to go through the comments again. Um, let's see. Pete Hart, you always have great guests. You are very prepared and very good. Questions shows are very. Pete, thank you. Appreciate that. We do put quite a bit of time into it. We still got a long ways to go. Other guys out there, um, Greg Hunter, a few other guys. They give really great info, and they're guys we look up to. Lynette Zhang also, she gives really great info. So we're appreciative that these guys have set the bar pretty high because then it gives us something high to shoot for as well. And we're still learning, still growing, and we appreciate the comments. Let's see. Um, yeah, Greg Hunter is great. He's one of the good guys out there for sure. Rolf Steiner waiting for the collapse in the USA and then the desperate shouts for the USA communists to come and save American people should be interesting to watch from another continent away. Um, yeah, that's I tell you that one. Politics is getting very very interesting in the U.S. I mean, your 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 field is dwindling down or getting whittled away, and you're starting to see that there's really not much choices out there. And some of those choices not exactly for Constitution. This is in the U.S. anyway. Um, so anyway, this week is the week that the Dep Clock was I guess the word is invented, and which is why we wanted to touch on the Dep Clock. Um, Originally, the National Debt Clock, it was a billboard-sized running total display which constantly updates to show the current U.S. gross national debt and each American family's share of debt. It's currently installed on the western side of One Bryant Park, west of 6th Avenue between 42nd and 43rd Streets in Manhattan, New York. It was the first debt clock installed anywhere. The idea for the clock came from New York real estate developer Seymour Durst, who wanted to highlight the rising national debt. So in '89, he sponsored the installation of the first clock, which was originally placed, the The first one at 6th Avenue between 42nd and 43rd Streets, 1 block away from Times Square. In 2004, the original clock was dismantled and replaced by a newer clock near 44th Street and 6th Avenue. In 2008, as the U.S. national debt exceeded 10 trillion for the first time, it was reported that the value of the debt may have exceeded the number of digits in the clock. The lit dollar sign in the clock's leftmost digit position was later changed to the one digit to represent 10, the 10 trillionth place in 2017. And today, this is the Dep Clock that most of us know. A lot of us, we go here from time to time, and a lot of us, we don't exactly understand it. I I I have yet to see one person come out and fully explain it. I think the best I've seen was Lynette Zhang. She actually did it about a month ago or so, and so this isn't a repeat of the work that she's done, but she's explained it probably the best that I've seen, and I don't think I could top her in doing so. So I'll just go ahead and talk about this depth clock in a different way. So the first thing to know is there are different groups. Where here we have national debt. Okay, this is one group, very very small. Let me blow this up a bit. Okay, so when you look in the further left hand portion, it'll give you the categories of these numbers. So budget items, the largest budget items, unfunded debt and interest, money creation, trade balance, which I found pretty interesting, and I'll point something out. And I know this is where you you guys are probably looking at all the time. Besides the debt, is the dollar to gold ratio, dollar to silver ratio. So I know you guys are looking at that part as well as the paper to silver, paper to gold. And again, she's probably explained it the best out of anyone that I've seen. So good job to Lynette. Another thing to know about this depth clock is when you move your mouse over the number, it'll give you an explanation of how they got that number. So U.S. federal tax revenue, how did they get this? Move over the number. U.S. federal tax revenue consists of the income tax, payroll tax, corporate tax, duties, and excise taxes. When you look at debt per taxpayer, how did they get this, or what's the explanation? Debt per taxpayer equals the U.S. national debt divided by the number of U.S. taxpayers. So probably an easy way when you got time to dive into the debt clock is know that it's broken up into different categories, and then just keep your mouse over a particular number, and then you'll get a definition as to how they got that number. Okay, let's see. So, excuse me about that. So the thing is, with this depth clock is coming a warning. Okay, there's a definite warning out there. This was back in 2019, about a year ago. The U.S. National Debt Clock and its warning, and this is why we want to take a look at it. What's it telling us? National Debt Clock tracks the U.S. debt, which was 22 trillion as of Feb 2019, and we're a trillion more. The clock sits at Anita's way between one Bryant. Okay, we got all that part. So why is it important? U.S. national debt is the sum of all outstanding debt owed by the federal government. It's an accumulation of each year's budget deficits. Nearly two thirds is public debt. You and me. That's held by individuals, businesses, and foreign governments that bought treasury bills, notes, and bonds. The government owes the rest to itself, mainly Social Security and other trust funds. And I think we know a lot of it is pensions as well. We've been talking pensions. Excuse me. We've been talking pensions for a while. The debt clock shows how much the U.S. government owes its citizens, other countries, and itself. Most federal revenue comes from individual taxes. Government counts on you to pay the debt back one day. Actually, I don't think it does. I think it just wants to get as much from you as it can. and kick the can down the road as much as it can. But nonetheless, corporations pass their tax costs through to you by raising prices. Jerome Powell's 2% inflation there. In other words, you, your children, and your grandchildren must pay 100% of the debt through higher taxes. The higher tax burden that the level of U.S. debt causes dampens expectations. It's a big threat to the quality of life and for future generations. Much of the debt is financed by loans from foreign governments. It gives them a voice in what happens in the United States. That's the dangerous part. The more you go into debt, the more this foreign money comes in, the louder their voice becomes. And next thing you know, you have politicians looking at foreign interest more than the interest of their own people. I'll continue. When the debt approaches the debt ceiling, politicians must vote to raise that ceiling. Since 2011, when the debt ceiling crisis resulted in the passing of the Budget Control Act of 2011, the debt limit has been suspended 4 times, twice in 2013 and 15, and in 2017. Ongoing debt limit issue was discussed when the Bipartisan Budget Act of 2018 went into force in February of that year. The debt limit was suspended through March 2019. So there's a huge warning there, mainly because, when you go into debt, you basically become a slave, right? And so if the country is going into debt, uh, we're definitely having foreign influence, and we're definitely going to see corrupt politicians, which is exactly what we're seeing today. Um, but to get a little bit more of an understanding of the debt clock, I just wanted to show this short video here.
U.S. debt is ticking up. In fact, every second, national debt increases by thousands of dollars. So just since you started watching this video, debt has gone up. U.S. national debt is more than $21 trillion. Yep, that's 12 zeros. Having trouble visualizing it? Well, think of it this way. You could wrap $1 bills around the earth more than 80,000 times with that amount. So how did we get here? Well, it's simple, really. The government is spending more money than it's taking in. The government makes money in one key way: taxes. Your income or payroll taxes are revenue for the government. It then spends that money on things like Social Security, healthcare, and defense. The catch is the government doesn't have enough revenue to pay for all of these programs at once, so it borrows money in the same way that you or I might. For example, as a consumer, it's good for me to be able to take out a loan for things like a car or a home. Without credit, I probably wouldn't be able to do that. It kind of works that way for the government, too. Without borrowing money, the government wouldn't be able to invest as much in education, national security, and infrastructure. So how does the government borrow money? Well, it issues bonds. Investors and central banks buy U.S. debt in the form of treasury bonds and securities, and they get returns when the government pays interest on those bonds.
Okay, so basically, at the heart of it all, U.S. national debt is now over 23 trillion, and the government is spending more money than it's taking in. And on the debt clock, when you look at the U.S. federal spending, subtracting the U.S. federal tax revenue, you find that this is going to equal the federal budget deficit. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Let me put that back up for you. So what she's saying is, when you take a look at the the tax revenue here, this is what the government's taking in. Let me blow this up so we can all see it a bit more clearly. Okay, hang on. Let me just blow this up. Okay, so this is what the government's taking in, this federal tax revenue. Okay. And then this is what they're spending. Oh, hang on. Sorry about that. Let me just move this over. Okay, so this is what they're spending. So they're taking in this 3+ trillion. Looks like a trillion, billion, million. Okay, yeah. So they're taking in 3.5 trillion, spending 4.5 trillion. And so here we have a budget deficit of over 1 trillion, slightly over 1 trillion. And this number, I believe, And if I'm wrong, someone let me know. But I believe this number comes from whenever the Congress they go ahead and set a new budget and things are kind of reset again. Well, the overall debt clock keeps it'll continue, but the budget deficit refers to and if I'm wrong, someone let me know. Refers to each new budget that is passed. So and this is why I believe you're seeing these numbers differ, but it is a total an accumulation as far as the U.S. national debt. Okay, so we have these numbers here, and we're talking about this budget. And recently, we've had what we saw come out. This was should be fairly recent. Um, Trump proposes 4.8 trillion budget with more border wall funding. Uh, okay, so it goes on to say the president's final budget proposal of his term will offer a blueprint for his priority if he wins re-election. Um, Hang on, let me clear this out. Jeez, a lot of ads, huh? So this was fairly recent where, and I'm going to be fair when I read this article. President Trump is expected to propose on Monday a 4.8 trillion budget that will include billions of additional dollars for this word his, I'm going to say nations, for additional dollars for the nation's wall along the southern border. And I say that because, time and time again, we come across too many articles that really plant things in the article to go ahead and keep division among the people, and I'm not really down with that. This wall, it's it belongs to the U.S., so it's the nation's wall along the southern border, and steep cuts to safety net programs like Medicaid, disability insurance, and housing assistance, according to senior administration officials. So again, there's no nobody's on the record here. The source is not on the record, and documents reviewed. Uh, what documents are they? So again, just always be careful whenever you take in articles because everything is written with bias right now. But nonetheless, what the story is saying is Trump is proposing 4.8 trillion, and this is what we just looked at when we were here. Let's see. So right now at the end of this budget, it's almost 4.5 trillion, and what Trump is proposing is another 4.8 trillion. So this is why I was saying that I believe this budget, this number here, budget deficit comes from whenever a new budget is passed. That's where that number comes from. So, you know, according to that article from the New York Times, another budget of 4.8 trillion, as I was saying, will be asked for. And when that next budget gets passed, whatever the amount is, the U.S. federal budget deficit, part of the Dep Clock, to my understanding, begins to tick again. So that's it, from my understanding, where they're getting that number from. So let's go into it a little bit more.
Of the $21 trillion debt, around $15.5 trillion is defined as held by the public. The other $5.7 trillion is money the federal government owes itself, for example in Social Security trust funds. When it comes to debt held by the public, 6% is owned by state and local governments, and 15% by the Federal Reserve. Foreign investors hold 39% of American debt, with China and Japan as the two biggest buyers. The remaining 40% is owned by U.S. investors. So that means the biggest buyer of U.S. debt is actually the American people.
Okay, so American people are who are holding the most U.S. debt. We'll get into that as well. So I want to take a look at some of the comments. Rolf Steiner, USA is insolvent but capable of meeting its debts by going further into bankruptcy by running massive deficits. Rolf, true. Absolutely true. Only governments can do this because they can conjure fiat currency out of thin air. Absolutely right. We can't do this. You and I definitely can't do this. And the thing is, so a question naturally is if, let's say, um, China or Japan lessens the amount of treasuries, and that means the balance of that debt burden would increase in other areas because they're not cutting back on the budget. They're increasing the budget, so it's gonna somewhere else has to pick up that shortfall. So the debt burden would increase in another area, and that would be the Federal Reserve having to buy more U.S. Treasuries, which we're seeing. And that also means when the Treasury has to pay out those bonds issued with interest, where's it then getting that money from? And that answer is you, me, and every U.S. taxpayer. So again, the way they're really going about this, it's just really kicking the can down the road. Nothing's ever being solved. The more countries look at this, the less they're going to want U.S. dollars. That's the theory. But when we take a look at the real number, hang on, let me pull this back up. When we take a look at the Dep Clock, the interesting thing here is when you look at the trade balance portion, U.S. debt held by foreign countries, it's going up. Okay, so more countries, they are buying U.S. debt. Why are they buying U.S. debt? Well, I guess when you look at yields, a lot of other places are zero to negative territory, and I guess for one reason, perhaps this is where countries are still hanging on and taking on U.S. debt. The other interesting part, which rarely gets any news time, is when you look at imported oil from OPEC, it's going down. Okay, the U.S. debt is going down as far as imported oil to OPEC. U.S. imported oil is going down. Okay, you can see this number here. It's also going down, and these things rarely get reported. The trade deficit with China, the trade deal was a big deal. You look at it, it's going down. So again, some of these numbers are actually reversing. It's not, where in every category, the depth is getting greater and greater. In some categories, it's actually getting less. And overall, when you look at the U.S. trade deficit, that number as well is going down. So apparently, there are some good things that are happening, but still, it's probably just not enough. So, and the thing is, when we look at this number here, U.S. debt held by foreign countries, I know a lot of times we talk about how countries are not buying U.S. debt anymore, but they still are. They really still are. And this also helps kind of explain what would happen if they didn't.
China is a manufacturing hub with an export-driven economy highly dependent on the U.S. Chinese exporters receive dollars for the goods they sell to the United States, but they need renminbi, RMB, the local currency, to pay their workers. They sell dollars to get RMB, increasing the dollar supply and raising demand for RMB. China wants to maintain export-led growth, so its RMB must be lower in value than the dollar. That way, prices can be cheaper. China's central bank buys excess U.S. dollars from exporters and gives them RMB to keep the dollar rate higher. Otherwise, the RMB would appreciate, making Chinese exports costlier, leading to unemployment as exports slow. But by keeping the RMB low, the dollar piles high among China's forex reserves. China puts its trillions of dollars of forex reserves into the safest investment it can find, U.S. Treasury securities. This means China is making loans to the U.S. so it can keep buying China's goods. Both nations benefit. China gets a huge market for its products, and the U.S. pays economical prices for China's goods. If China offloaded some of its U.S. debt, an excess supply of U.S. dollars would reduce the dollar's value and make the RMB appreciate. China's products would cost more, ending China's price advantage. China's trade surplus would then become a deficit, something no export-driven economy wants.
Okay, so that gives a little bit of a different take on things. Yes, we are seeing the debt climb higher and higher and higher, but we are still seeing countries who actually need to put money in the U.S., need to take on U.S. debt. But that example where they gave China, it's also again pretty interesting in that China does have its own ambitions as well. On what they want to do with their yuan, whether it's a gold-backed yuan, whether it's digital, like we just talked about. But they are trying to move off off of the dollar, along with many other countries. But nonetheless, we still are seeing that U.S. debt held by foreign countries. It does continue to increase. Take a look at some of these comments again. Let's see. When a complexity of the whole system, but USA is still on top of a fractured financial system, though the USD is 48 years old and ready to retire. Weme, that's just it. Right now, as they say, there's nothing else out there. And one thing about currencies that people don't often talk about is currencies come with armies. Um, and I think it's a fair statement to make. And in the U.S.'s case, has a large army, has a large military to keep that currency afloat in place. And all reserve currencies, whether it was the British, uh, whether it was Spain, they had, and I think this has been said before, they all had pretty powerful navies because they had to get from here to there, back in the day. And, this is one reason why I find it tough with crypto like Bitcoin when they say, that's going to be the world's currency because there's no army behind Bitcoin. Um, but anyway, nonetheless, I just wanted to throw that in there where U.S. dollar is still surviving, and a lot of it is because of the military. And any new currency that comes in, if it's going to be the so-called world reserve currency, it's going to have a pretty strong, significant military as well. So that's one thing that is rarely talked about whenever it comes to that. Um, some more of the comments. When we again understand that China has bought billions of U.S. treasuries at absorbent rates, yes, they have returned for the past 40 years. Not only their products shipped out. Okay, okay. So I mean, I do see you guys. You do have varying opinions, and it's always good to have a debate. Only time will tell. How all these things start to unfold. But the thing is with this Dep clock, you know, does it really matter? When we see all these numbers here, when we go back to U.S. national debt, does it really matter that this number is 23 trillion? I mean, do we ever intend to pay it? Because if we do, every single person in the U.S. has to pay or should pay roughly 70,000, and that's not going to happen because number one, it just isn't. And number two, not everyone works. The people who do works, do work, sorry, they are taxpayers. And so for the taxpayer, the people who really do work and contribute taxes, they would have to be paying $188,000 to take control of the debt. So if we look here again, the definition up here, the debt per taxpayer equals the U.S. national debt divided by the number of U.S. taxpayers. And you're not a taxpayer unless you're working paying taxes. Another interesting number to look at is, of course, federal debt to GDP. We're at 106%. Okay, let me see if I can blow this up a bit bigger for you guys. Okay, we're at U.S. federal debt, to GDP ratio 106%. It's not a number to worry. I've read reports where typically, still 70% or so of GDP is still okay. It's definitely a number to be concerned about where adjustments need to be made. But, countries and things like QE and money printing and things like that, this number now, that 100% boogeyman number, nowadays it seems it can go above and well above that 100%. So it's morally, it's a number that is extremely concerning. But the reality of it in the world today, money printing and things like that, 100% it's still significant, but it's not that damning number that it used to be. And again, that's something for us who try to pay our bills. It's a number that we can't understand. 100%, 106% of GDP is debt, or U.S. federal debt to GDP. That's pretty significant. And again, you look at these other numbers here. This I find interesting. Federal Reserve shareholder profits. Profit. It's a word where somebody's making money. But anyway, you see this number going up. So somewhere, Federal Reserve shareholder profits are going up. And you slide over here, the debt to wealth ratio is 1,474 to 1. This number basically means how much dollars it takes. How much do you go in debt to make a dollar? And that's 1,474 to 1. Let me make sure I get the definition correct on that. I'll go out a bit. Okay, so that number is here. Hang on, a little bit smaller just to make sure we get the correct definition. Debt to wealth ratio, the amount of debt-based interest-bearing money provided by the Federal Reserve divided by the amount of wealth-based non-interest-bearing U.S. Treasury coins issued in the current year. So, guys are going into debt to make money, which absolutely makes no sense at all. Again, so the thing is, does the debt really matter? Let me play this short clip on this. Does debt really matter?
So does all of this debt matter? Most economists would agree the short answer to that question is yes, but there's plenty of debate over just how much. Economists generally think it's okay for debt to increase when the economy needs a boost. You can see in this chart federal debt held by the public spiked during World War II and during the financial crisis, when the government borrowed money to boost the economy. The problem is that the federal debt is set to continue to increase to its highest level since 1946, even though the economy is now in much better shape.
The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is passed.
One reason for this is a big law Congress passed at the end of 2017 that lowered taxes without cutting spending, which will result in even more borrowing.
Okay, so what are some of the pros and cons of this public debt? Because a lot of things are just not really making sense. And again, that's because you can probably go into debt all you want if you can go ahead and print the money to pay it. But what are some of the pros and cons regarding this public debt? Well, it's how much public debt is how much a country owes to lenders outside of itself. These can include individuals, businesses, and even other governments. The term public debt is often used interchangeably with the term sovereign debt. So I know we hear this word all the time, sovereign debt, sovereign debt, sovereign debt. Well, the term public debt is often used interchangeably with sovereign debt. So you hear sovereign debt, you may be able to exchange that word sovereign debt with public debt. Public debt usually only refers to national debt, but some countries also include the debt owed by states, provinces, and municipalities. Therefore, be careful when comparing public debt between countries to make sure the definitions are the same. Regardless of what it's called, public debt is the accumulation of annual budget deficits, which we looked at. It's the result of years of government leaders spending more than they take in via tax returns. A nation's deficit affects its debt, and vice versa. And I want you guys to think back to that live stream we did about the bills that are in Congress. If you were there for that live stream, you're going to recall that one of the bills before Congress right now is where the public, they're not, basically the Federal Reserve is not going to be used, or the government is not going to be paying pensions. If pensions should get in trouble, the government and the Federal Reserve will not be paying to cover for the pensions. There's a bill right now. I'll need to pull that up, I guess, at some point. But in a previous live stream we did, you'll remember there's a bill where government is not going to pay for states' pensions should they get in trouble. So if your state gets in trouble with your pension, government is not going to help out. And remember, again, a pension is just a promise, and it's basically public debt. So public debt versus external debt, don't confuse the two. That's the amount of foreign investors by both the government and the private sector. Public debt affects external debt because if interest rates go up on the public debt, they will also rise for all private debt. That's one reason businesses pressure their governments to keep public debt within a reasonable range. And it's not. When public debt is good, in the short run, excuse me, public debt is good is a good way for countries to get extra funds to invest in their economic growth. Public debt is a safe way for foreigners to invest in a country's growth by buying government bonds. And that's the thing. If you read it again, public debt is a safe way for foreigners to invest in a country's growth by buying government bonds. And as I just showed you, they are buying US debt, but public debt is pretty much getting out of control already. And if we look at this statement, public debt is a safe way, well, we'd have to say high public debt is not a safe way, or it's an indicator that saying things are not safe to invest in a country's growth by buying government bonds. So we could say the reverse when we look at that public debt number. Um, Continuing on, this is much safer than foreign direct investment. That's when foreigners purchase at least a 10% interest in the country's companies, businesses, and real estate. It's also less risky than investing in the country's public companies its via its stock market. Public debt is attractive to risk averse investors since it is backed by the government itself. So, I mean, does debt matter? Absolutely. It matters to it may not matter to the average person because none of us are really essentially having to pay except through maybe a little bit more tax here or there, but we're not feeling it. Well, I shouldn't say that. We do feel it. We do feel it in the wallet, but relative to the huge number that it is, we don't we're not having to pay that 100,000 a year or whatever it is that every person is supposed to pay, but we are paying for it in terms of all of these little extra taxes creeping up here and there, and again, pensions, they're just not covered right now, and everyone has sniffed that out. There's the government cannot pay for pensions. It basically, like a lot of people say, it is a Ponzi scheme at this point where they have to keep creating more and more government jobs to get people into the government to go ahead and pay for the existing pensions that need to be paid out, or they need to cut back on services, or they need to, again, raise taxes here and there. So, it's not a good situation right now. And for the rest of the world, when they see this, they're not going to be buying or investing as much in the country, which is why we see the Fed buying so much treasuries. So it's the veil is being lifted. It's being lifted. It's being lifted slowly. They're still trying to see if as that veil is coming up, they're trying to see if they can put it back down and hide things and cover things. But it's just not going to happen. We're all seeing this already. Uh, let's see. Ralph Steiner, anything east of the Ural Mountains gets pretty dodgy on the Aryan Genet. Okay, where are we going with that? Ride the curve. The one thing that struck me most about Mike Maloney series is when he said that precious metals are wealth that has no counterparty. It's yours, and nobody can say otherwise. Um, I'd agree with that. I definitely would agree with that. Precious metals, they are wealth. It doesn't need to be. You don't need to wait for a bank to print it or whatever it is. It stores wealth. It generally moves and fights off, stays ahead of inflation, whereas paper notes, they don't. And so again, this another reason why everyone should really take a look at gold and silver, precious metals. You know, as an investment, it does have investment qualities. Yes, it does. Is it the best investment? Well, when you look at what's been going on with the stock market, I'd be lying if I were to tell you it's the best investment out there, but I'd be giving you 100% truth if I told you it's definitely the best insurance out there for when these things all start to unravel, which day by day is starting to unravel more and more and more. So understand the insurance aspect of precious metals, where if you have paper, You move it over into silver and gold. Now, if anything happens with the paper, you're okay because your money is now here. Your wealth is now here, and that's one of the things that needs to be understood with gold and silver. It's a store of value. It's not an investment alone. Over time, it has moved over from an investment to now investment slash insurance. And I know you guys understand that out there, but for the new guys or for the guys that only look at the price of gold and silver and try to, draw little trend lines and trajectories and try to guess the price, forget all that. All you need to know is this system, this current monetary system is going to change. And things like gold and silver are going to help you get through that transition of when it does change, for sure. And when we look at even from the Federal Reserve itself, when you look at public debt, it's amazing. We're all the way up here now. Okay, public debt. This was back in Q3 2019. Okay, 22 trillion. We're way up here. And when you look at this chart, again, keep in mind these gray vertical bars are periods of recession. And when I looked at this, I saw a couple interesting things. When you go back to 1970, 71, you basically see a flat line. This was when that gold window was still open. Money was still convertible to gold. This was before Nixon closed that gold window. And all the action starts after this period here. Starts to gradually go up and up and up. Money is no longer linked to gold. But again, when you look at this chart here, you see a recession and then it kind of leveled off. Recession and it leveled off. A recession and it leveled off. A recession, but now it starts to climb a bit. Goes through a recession, the debt starts to climb a bit. You go through another recession, starts to climb a bit, and then this last one, the Great Recession, it just basically went astronomical from here on out. And the thing is, it hasn't stopped climbing. This public debt has not stopped climbing. So this next time around, when this next recession comes, I'm sorry, I'm kind of laughing about it, but when this next recession comes, we're not going to be able to get out of it. But I don't think we're going to be able to get out of it. And again, when you look at history, when money starts to get in trouble, you see new money come in. And again, just put all the dots together. Digital currencies, this is what central banks are looking at. That very well probably is going to be the new money that comes in. So we got to understand there's going to be a transition from the current system we're in into a new monetary system. And, people often don't talk about that transition, or the only things you really hear about the transition is Mad Max scenario and things like that. You know, I'm not saying it's not possible, but I will say it all depends on where you live. There are certain parts of the world, chaos, complete chaos, and is very you can't not look away where to say that things won't get bad. And there are other parts of the world where you know things generally will still remain fairly good, fairly safe. And again, it just depends on where you are. And with the U.S. being the reserve currency, I think U.S. does stand to feel the brunt of it as this transition starts to happen, and as the transition occurs, again, which is why you definitely want to have some gold and silver on your person, and do consider keeping some outside of the country as well. Like I said, U.S. probably will take the brunt of it, and you may not want to be keeping everything you have there within those borders at that point, because you don't know, you just don't know what's going to come about in the end, or during the transition. So you want to make sure some of your assets are safe, because a lot of us are getting older, and we just may not have that time. And even with this federal debt, we're not going to be able to spend our way out of it. And I'll just play this short clip that talks about that.
Another reason the national debt is likely to grow: America's population is getting older, and that means the government will need to pay for more programs for its senior citizens. For example, spending will increase on Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. Some investors have gotten used to sky-high debt levels that have become the norm not just in the US, but around the world since the financial crisis. U.S. bonds have remained a popular investment, and the country still has a AA+ credit rating, meaning it's rated one of the safest places in the world to put your money. But economists, policymakers, and politicians have warned that a debt crisis is looming, where the U.S. won't be able to pay its bills, or where it's already so deep in debt when the next crisis hits that it can't spend its way out of it. U.S. Director of National Intelligence Dan Coats called the growing debt a dire threat to our economic and national security.
Threat to national security. Running out of steam. No, it's needed a bit of water there. Threat to national security. That's some pretty strong words about the debt, the catastrophic threat to national security, exploding debt. This article came out. Let me see if I can find a date. I'm sure there'll be a date somewhere. Exploding debt, a threat to national security. The politics of division imposes an invisible cost to the nation. Divisive politics inherently mean that almost no common ground exists for action on issues of great importance, and falling into the chasm between the two parties are calamitous dangers to a national security that make our actual headlines today pale in comparison. One such danger in the political no man's land is not even being discussed, and so no one is even working on a solution, that being the national debt. About 10 years ago, Admiral Mike Mullen, then chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, did not identify an adversary, nation, or terrorist organization as the paramount threat to our country. He stated emphatically, the most significant threat to our national security is our debt. Coming from a military man now, okay? This is what he said. In the decades since then, the U.S. has continued to pursue two wars and other conflicts, largely outside the budget process and with no war tax to ameliorate the more than $5 trillion that has been spent. The Bush 43 administration had already pushed through the Medicare Part D prescription drug program in 2003. Congress declined. Let me scroll down a bit. Okay. So what did we get for all this debt, all these wars and everything going on? Not more national security. After 17 years of war and trillions of dollars poured into the Middle East, security position in the world is about the same, and the military is worn and in great need of an expense refurbishment. Not better infrastructure. Debt is useful tool. It's a useful tool for improving public infrastructure upon which the economy depends, but we don't have the capacity for infrastructure debt. Trillions will be needed just to get back to even. And that's part of it, because I think most of us know some debt is good debt. You know, we take that debt, we reinvest it, we go ahead and create something out of it, and it starts to turn a profit. You know, it goes into the economy, starts to turn a profit. Other debt, bad debt. I mean, building roads, okay, we need the roads, but you build the road, and what happens after that? You're already taxing people, you know, through car registrations, road taxes, and whatnot. I mean, what do you do then? Set up gantries and more toll bridges or something like that for it to make money on the money that you spent. So, you know, those types of things, unless you're figuring, you know, it goes in the pockets of the workers who build these things, and then these workers will go ahead and put the money back into the economy. But that doesn't seem to be happening. So, you know, there's a difference between good debt and bad debt. And right now, a lot of the debt that the U.S. is taking on, it's all bad debt. Take a look at some of these questions again here. Keep calm. We will print more. Ted Stryker. Yeah. RR. We got corruption, dysfunction, destruction, and debasement of civil society. You know, that's a good point. civil society seems to be getting debased. I don't think we're getting better. I think we're actually starting to get a bit worse there. But when we look at the, hang on, let me click on this for you. When we go back and look at that depth clock, um, these are the parts that they're pretty significant. When you look at things like this bottom right hand corner here, social security liabilities 20 plus trillion, Medicare liabilities 31 plus trillion, unfunded liabilities 128 plus trillion, liability per citizen over $389,000. Now that is huge. And you come back over here, money creation. Money is just constantly being created. These numbers are they're just not going down. And the dangerous one here is when you look at currency and credit derivatives. This number is going up. It's going up significantly. It's going up, I believe, a million every second. Every second it's going up another million in derivatives. This is money that is just, it's not even in existence yet. I mean, I don't believe it's even in existence yet, but that number keeps going up. Guys are making bets that casino is 24 hours nonstop, and that's the dangerous part about it. There's not even enough money to cover things that are going on in the world right now. So again, so let's see. Looking at your comments here. Um, Social insecurity 49 badge, absolutely. Presidents are selected, not elected. Getting hard to. Not a nice thought, my friend Ralph Steiner. Not a nice thought, but you can't be blind to it. If you're honest with yourself. It's a statement that's hard to shake off. Okay, let's see. Chris C. Silver is mortally wounded. Believe it'll go up and be happy with fractions of percentage gains. Um, Silver it's been wounded for quite a while, but it's still pretty resilient. I mean, like I was saying, it gets into 18, above 18, and next thing it's back down to 1750, and then you give it a few days, and it's back in the 18 range, and then it gets flattened back down 1750, and then got to give it a bit more time, gets back in the 18 range. Eventually, I don't think that 1750. I don't think they'll be able to continually keep pushing it back down to 1750. I think at some point those lows will the lows will be getting higher. I mean, it'll always be flattened down a bit, but I think eventually these lows are going to have to be higher lows. That I'm pretty certain with that for sure. Um, so let's see. Me, sorry, Mesh the goat. So glad to get some insight into all of this. Appreciate you guys for education. Um, Appreciate it. It's all the guys here. I mean, I think you got a good bunch of people here, except for one or two. You guys know who you are, which I'm not gonna read your comment. Which is why, if you notice, I changed the template for whenever I read your comments, because I don't want your comments to be seen by everyone. Um, I'm not gonna. I'm going to keep people nameless for now with that one. But anyway, yeah, we got a lot of good people here, and we did have to change the setup because some guys, they just typically want to troll, troll, troll. So we took that away where you don't see the live chat on screen. But anyway, appreciate that, and appreciate you guys. You guys are really the the gear behind all of this that makes things go and makes things work. So appreciate that. So I mean, it is a threat to national security, but the outlook still, it's not a good outlook. Definitely not a good outlook. And national debt, it does affect all of us. And I just want to get to one area here. I know this is where a lot of the conversation probably will pick up. It's when you look at things like the sorry, let me slide it over here. Let me click on the web page here. When you look at things like dollar to silver ratio, when you look at things like dollar to gold ratio, paper to silver ratio, paper to gold ratio, uh, dollar to silver ratio basically means if the money that's printed relative to mining supply. Let me make this a bit smaller, and we'll get the true definition of the Dep Clock. Okay, hang on. Let me just go out a bit. So again, if you're at home, what you want to do is hover over a particular number, and then you're going to get the definition of how that number came to be. So when we take a look at dollar to silver gold ratio, so here's my mouse here. Okay, we'll move in here. And then up at the top, we see US dollar to silver ratio. The year over year increase in the US M2 money supply divided by the yearly world production of silver in ounces. So if you run a ratio between those two, it's 1,100 to 4. That's how much in the supply that would equate to an ounce of silver that's being mined, the world production of silver. So if this world production of silver had to account for that money supply, M2, it would be $1,104 per ounce if it had to account for each dollar in that M2 money supply. And it's the same with gold. If gold had to account for that M2 money supply, each ounce of gold would be $9,148. Now, here's the interesting thing. Let me blow this back up a bit. This is what I found interesting. I mean, we know right now the silver to gold ratio is about 88 or so, right? Okay, so if we were to look at silver and gold, you come out with the 88 or so ratio. 88 ounces of silver equals 1 ounce of gold. Now, the thing that I found interesting here, the dollar to silver ratio 1,100, the dollar to gold ratio 9,100. So we're let's just call this a 9-to-1 ratio between the silver and gold relative to that M2 monetary supply. Meaning, if gold had to be revalued to 9,148 and silver had to be revalued to 1,104, that's roughly a 9, let's just say 9-to-1 ratio, give or take. And the interesting part for me is that's what the miners are saying these metals are coming out of the ground at about a 9-to-1 ratio. And I don't think this is coincidence. So for me, that says something where the markets will have you believe that the ratio between silver and gold is 88 or so to 1. But here, when you take a look at the monetary supply, M2 money supply, relative to silver, relative to gold, it's telling you that the ratio of silver to gold here would be about 9-to-1, which is, again, exactly what the miners are saying it's coming out of the ground at. So for me, I found that very, very, very interesting. So the markets want you to believe it's 88, but the miners are saying 9-to-1. And then you look at the Dep Clock money, the M2 monetary supply. It also tells you 9-to-1. So silver definitely undervalued. Grab your silver while you can. I know I am. That's for sure. Taking a look at comments again. Shane Clement, silver. The question is it retaining its purchasing power? Nothing else matters. Same with gold. I'd say gold and silver is retaining its purchasing power. Over time, definitely it's going to retain that. It's going to do better than retain that purchasing power. A whole lot more than cash would. That, I'd say with complete certainty. Let's see. Okay. What are you guys talking about here? Let's see. Shane, one more time. PM's function in not gaining, it's retaining. Anything else is a bonus. Yeah, Shane, good point. Good point. again, store of wealth. That's where you want to be. And I think these numbers are kind of giving you a peek into that window, especially again when you look at that relative to the money supply. And silver would have to be revalued, gold would have to be revalued. And when you look at, if they were revalued, the ratio between that silver and gold, if they're revalued, is 9 to 1, and 9 to 1 is what the miners are saying is coming out of the ground. So it all makes sense if you look at it from that perspective. Um, okay, so that more or less, I think that those are the things we want to look at when we take a look at the U.S. Dep Clock. And again, the other part also, paper to silver ratio, paper to gold ratio. Basically, we know these are out of whack already. It's paper price is controlling the physical price, and we know there's not enough paper contracts to cover physical, and this is the ratio of where it's at right now: 175 to 1, 89 to 1. To get the true definition of it, let me zoom out, and then we'll go ahead and get the true definition for you. One more time. Okay, so if I put it here, okay, so what I'm looking at is the paper to gold ratio. The explanation of it is the number of paper gold ounces traded on the major world gold exchanges divided by the actual world production of gold in ounces. Meaning, the- there the contracts that you're buying, or this paper gold that you're buying, it does not reflect the, how would I explain this? There's less physical out there than these ETFs, these paper contracts. In other words, you buy these paper contracts, but there's really a minimal amount of gold or silver that actually backs it up. You might be that lucky guy, that 89th guy, or whatever. You might be that one lucky guy to actually get something if you ask for delivery. But otherwise, if these guys were to take delivery, there would never be enough silver and gold to cover delivery on these contracts. And I think all of us know this already, and that's why we're not into paper contracts. I mean, if you just simply want to speculate and have exposure to gold and silver, paper contracts might be where you want to look. But if you really want to have that insurance for when the system, really starts to go into a tailspin, you want that physical. You don't want to be holding a paper contract at that point. You definitely want the physical. So again, I mean, I just wanted to touch on a few things about this Dep Clock. um Lynette Zhang, Salivate Metal, those guys did a really great job on theirs. And I'm not gonna be able to outdo what they did. I just wanted to go about this from a different perspective, bring things down home, where we can kind of relate these numbers to our everyday lives and kind of understand what it means from that sense. But for those guys, Salivate Metal and Ed Zang, great job. What you guys did is a really good job. So yeah, check what they did out if you have time. Couple more things though. Dep clocks in other parts of the world are actually positive, if you can believe that. And I just want to take a look at Singapore's Dep clock. There is a way to look at other Dep clocks throughout the world. Singapore Dep clock. Why does the country borrow so much money? If you simply look at this, you would see a huge number, 771 billion. But you got to go into it a bit deeper. So in Singapore's case, remember we talked about good debt, bad debt. Singapore's case, Singapore borrows to invest, not to spend. So Singapore remains a net creditor. So even though you see this huge number, debt, but it's good debt, Singapore still remains a net creditor. This is money that's invested. And this source comes from Singapore government data. And so, again, I just wanted to share with you that there's good debt, there's bad debt, and I just want to make sure that that you guys saw that. Hang on. Okay, I'm not sure if you guys saw that, but again, this is the Singapore Dep Clock. If you just take a look at it, it's 771 billion, and you would think, well, hey, Singapore is in debt, but it's not, because again, in Singapore's case, Singapore borrows to invest, not to spend. Singapore remains a net creditor. So I just wanted to repeat this because I wasn't sure if you guys were able to see that graphic. I'm not sure if it came up. So, there are places in the world they do remain fiscally responsible. And again, you know, I mean, I'll just have to say this. This is one of the bigger reasons why, people do send their assets, their gold and silver, to Singapore to store it here. They know the government's responsible. They know it's a safe place. I mean, unfortunately, we just saw what happened with Switzerland at the beginning of the show. Uh, Broken trust for sure. With Singapore's case, it's something that they just cannot let happen. The whole existence. I mean, I may be phrasing this wrong, but a big part of Singapore's existence relies on trust and transparency, where other countries know, or people know, that they can absolutely trust the place. And things like this, when you show the how financially responsible the government is, it's not a place where it's going into debt, where countries and people don't start to trust. It's a very it's a unique place. A very very unique place in this world, and that's why we do see a lot of people who do store their things like gold and silver here, and they do store it with companies that, uh, and I'll say it, the ones who are more wise, they understand the jurisdiction of Singapore, what it means, and how it's not enough to just keep assets in Singapore. You have to go the extra step and understand that you don't want to, you really don't want to keep it with a U.S. entity. I mean, I'll just say that, because if it's tied in with the U.S. entity, if U.S. can still pressure a company in Singapore to act on its behalf, whereas let's say a company like us, we have no ties or entities, affiliations with any U.S. company. So if even for us, if we were to get a letter from U.S. government, it basically means nothing to us, because we only follow Singapore law, Singapore jurisdiction, and that's probably the biggest difference between us and a lot of other companies in Singapore. So, I'm saying this because, you know, if I were still back in the States, I would not even consider um, having or storing gold in another country. I would be keeping it all with me. But after being in Singapore for a while, or if I were in Europe, I'd be keeping it all with me. But after being here for a while and seeing how things work, I've been here since 2005, seeing how it works, seeing how the government is incredibly stable, I would have to say now that, yeah, I probably would have changed my mind, or I would change my mind. But I know in the beginning, there's no way that I would keep things overseas. I would keep it with me. But after learning a bit more and understanding a bit more, it's I would feel comfortable. But everyone's different. Everyone is completely different. But again, I just wanted to show that last graphic where it's not all gloom and doom. There are places in the world that are still responsible, and if that that's really the key. I mean, if you got to be responsible for your government, a lot of governments, I should say, they're just not responsible anymore. Um, it's sad to say, but it's just not that way anymore. And so you need to do what you need to do for you, and for your generations to follow. So I read a bit more comments here. Uh, Daryl Rowan Marples, Singapore has the safest storage for gold. And yeah, no, Daryl doesn't work for us or anything. The point he makes is good. And again, to add to that, you know, it's even better if you're keeping it with a company that does not have ties to any other government, because that government still could put pressure on a company, even if it's in Singapore, still could put pressure on a company to do what it wants. Whereas if you're just an entirely Singapore registered company, no other government can really put pressure on you because you simply will only follow Singapore law, Singapore jurisdiction. So again, keeping things here is good, but it's not good enough. Good enough is when you are with companies that have no ties to US or any other foreign company. That's when you get the most you can out of Singapore. Um, William Keaton, silver is such a bargain right now. Absolutely. I tell you what, even though it hits 18, goes back down to 1750. I personally feel relief when it's at 1750. When it gets above 1850, then I get a bit anxious because I'm still accumulating. I'm like a lot of you out there, accumulate, still accumulate. So when you see that number start to tick up a bit, you get a little bit of that FOMO, a little bit of that fear of missing out where it's like, hey, you better hurry up and buy some, prices starting to go up. And then when it comes back down, half of you feels like, darn, my investment's not making money. But then the other half of you feels like, okay, great, now I can buy more. So when you get into silver and gold, it is more than just the price, but the price is a factor. But try not to let it control every breath that you take in. It's always going to move, and as long as you understand it's more than just price, you're going to be okay. If you're just tied into the price only and you're getting anxious every 5 minutes, then research it more. Because if that price is getting you anxious, then it means maybe you don't fully understand silver and gold. So maybe dig a bit deeper, maybe talk to a few more people to really understand it as much as you can. Uh, let's see. Um, RR, never stop accumulating. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just think of it as uh, you're buying more and more insurance. Buy what you can. Don't go overboard. Don't over leverage. Buy what you can. Some people they'll buy a huge amount and walk away. They feel comfortable with what they have, and that's it. Other people they have a goal. I want to reach 5,000 or 10,000 ounces, and that's it. I won't buy anymore. That's fair enough. Other guys can't have enough. It just becomes, you know, part of the fabric in their life where every paycheck I'm gonna buy some silver and gold and put it away. This is my savings account. This is my money. So everyone's different. We all see things different. Um, let's see. Rolf Steiner, one word of advice for the Americans here. We need advice. We really do. Whatever you do, do not allow the tribe to take over your government, banking system, judicial system, CIA, FBI, and your media, such as newspaper and TV. Rolf, I tell you what, um, yeah, those are good words. Some good words. I mean, when you look at the direction of where U.S. is going, for some people it's okay. For others, it's not. And so we got to you got to decide what you want to do. Um, Fear not. There you go, Greg Hunter. Okay. So anyway, I'll be wrapping this up. I gotta head out. I do appreciate the time that you've given. I think I've been kind of rambling on and on, but thanks for the time you've given. The Dep Clock. Go ahead and look at it yourself, and go ahead and learn what each of those little bubbles with the numbers mean. And a lot of times it's still not clear. So then we have to dig a bit deeper and understand what it is that it's truly saying. But numbers to keep in mind, really, derivatives, it's way out there. You look at the trade balance numbers, it is doing better. And of course, you look at the liabilities, Medicare, Social Security, you're going to see that there's no way these things can be paid. And it's a scary number to look at, but it doesn't mean that it's all bad. There's still things we can do, and you guys know what they are. Get that silver, get that gold. Get yourself some real hard liquid assets. One foot in the financial system, one foot out. Again, we know where things are going. China's taking in money. That probably is going to open the door to digital currencies. So just be aware. Be aware of all of these things. So again, I thank you guys for being here. Um, you guys all stay well too. Thank you for the best wishes. Again, we're all in the same boat together. You do what you can for your family. Be a blessing, not a burden. And most importantly, saddle up for what's coming ahead and silver up. I'll see you guys next week. You guys take care of each other.